Hi, it's Julie and Simon here from Everyday Camps. For Christmas 2020, we were booked to go on an ocean cruise, but 2020, as we all know, put a spanner in the works. We decided to support local tourism and stay in South Australia instead. We found a river cruise for a 7-night trip on the Murray Princess from the riverland town of Renmark, heading downstream to Mannum. I'll hand you over to Simon to tell you how the trip went.
To get the trip started, we all met up at Mannum and stowed our cars away before jumping on the SeaLink coach to take us to the ship at Renmark. Our driver John was courteous and energetic. He had lots of great facts to share and some good stories to tell. We stopped at Waikerie for an hour or so to grab something to eat and to stretch our legs. Pretty soon though, we were back on the road again and passing through the riverland towns before arriving at the port of Renmark. We were greeted by the staff at the ship, and in no time they had our bags in our rooms. As we boarded, we were greeted by the captain and the officers. Then the staff escorted us to our cabins and gave us a quick tour. After quickly unpacking in the room, we headed up the top to explore the ship. Shortly after, we all gathered in the main dining room for the safety briefing. It's pretty easy on the ship, as the Murray's not that deep, and we could almost walk off if we really needed to. Okay, we're just approaching the Paringa bridge, currently in its down position. I'm guessing it's going to sound the horns and move it up a sec. The top section of the ship collapses and folds so that it can fit through tight spaces like this. The captain does have to take extra care here. Things like the current and changing river heights can make this a tricky operation. No sooner than getting under the bridge, it was time for our first lock, number 5 at Paringa. Getting a ship of this size through these locks is a time-consuming job, but the passengers are happy to watch it all happen. Then it was time for our first dinner on board. Drinks were decided upon, introductions to table mates made, staff were announced, and meals were ordered. We were all happy with the quality. My steak was fantastic. Our stop for the night was in a beautifully secluded part of the river, not far from Renmark South. Things started pretty slowly in the morning, as it seems that the river was a bit shallower than expected. We ran aground a few times, but always freed ourselves and found the correct path down the river. The plan was to drop in at Berri for a few hours, but it was cancelled as we apparently could not moor at the wharf as it was too shallow. It was taking longer to get down the river, so we continued on. Not much further down the river was Lock 4, located at Blanchetown. The Kamikaze Flats is an area where the river gets very shallow. It has low banks with vast floodplains on either side of the river. The small boat in front of the ship is checking the river levels as we go to find the correct path through the river. In the late afternoon, we moored at Loxton. Even though it was scorching hot, we walked up to the main street and managed to do some last minute shopping before the shops closed for Christmas. After dinner, we were collected by 2 sea-link coaches and taken to the Tree of Knowledge, and then to the Christmas lights in both Loxton and Loxton North. The ones in Loxton North were pretty incredible. It was Christmas Day, and we had a relaxing morning as the staff had their own celebration. We took the time to explore the local parks and walk along the river's edge. Then it was time for a very special Christmas lunch. Santa arrived on a tinny before handing out presents to everyone. Only those who've been nice this year, of course. Then the cruise took us down the river past Cobdobla, our original planned stop, under the Kingston-on-Murray bridge to port at Kingston-on-Murray for the night. There was time for a walk around town after the weather had cooled off in the evening. All in all, that was a very good way to spend Christmas Day. It was a beautiful morning at Kingston-on-Murray, and we had some time on shore before setting off for Waikerie. First off, we had to pass through Loch 3. This was a fantastic day of cruising, with some of, in my opinion, the best scenery of the trip. There were a lot of sandstone cliffs and a ton of wildlife to watch out for. We spent hours just watching it pass by from the sun deck. The next stop was Waikerie, but as it was a scorcher of a day, we decided on not leaving the ship and just settling in the bar for a cold drink. The entertainment for the evening was the cruise show, which included quite a few decent jokes. We left Waikerie around 6 AM and cruised down the river past Renmark station, and then straight through Loch 2 at Qualco. Next up was a visit to Cordo Vineyard. They greeted us with some samples of their wines and their sangrias. We picked up some Lucky Dip wines, which turned out to be pretty good. After some time relaxing on the grass, it was back onto the ship and heading for our next destination of Morgan. The weather had turned sour by the time that we reached Morgan, but we still managed to walk around the town. It's a place with a huge amount of river and rail history, and we want to go back and discover more of it soon. The entertainment for the night was the Murray Cup. The staff showed off hilariously how it all worked. After dark, Katie the entertainer took us for a walk around the haunted sites of Morgan. just at dawn when the river was super calm and quiet. It was a big day of cruising to get to our next destination of Sunnydale, but the scenery was incredible. The highlights were the Blanchetown and the Big Bend areas. We'd definitely recommend doing a cruise through this part of the river. Once we arrived at Sunnydale, we were immediately taken on carts to see the local sheep farm. It was a fun time for sure. Back at the ship, it was time for the Australian barbecue. It was terrific and the staff put on some great entertainment. Even later in the evening, we got back on the carts. We went touring the back paddocks of the area looking for nocturnal life. We found spiders, kangaroos and emus, but the wombats were hiding. Very shortly after departing Sunnydale, we arrived at Nort Nort Aboriginal Conservation Park. There were 3 guided walks on offer, one to suit all fitness levels. We chose to go to the cliff's top and to get a great panoramic view of the river. The tour was educational. We came away with a much greater understanding of Aboriginal culture and history in the area. It's a highly recommended stop. Back onto the ship, it was time for lunch as we cruised to our final stop at Young Husband. Our trip was sadly coming to an end very quickly. It was a special night to finish the trip with a formal captain's dinner. There were free drinks, a multi-course seafood dinner, speeches and great entertainment.
Thanks, Simon. That's it for the trip. We arrived back safely into the historic town of Mannum in the early morning and were soon heading home. All in all, we had a delightful time. The 7-night cruise went very quickly, but we saw and did so much during that time. The scenery was quite spectacular, with lots of birds and wildlife. We especially enjoyed the serene part of the river between Renmark and Loxton, where the river seemed untouched. Travelling past the Big Bend cliffs was also a highlight, as the river turned 270 degrees. Having Christmas Day on board a river cruise was a fantastic way to celebrate the day. The food was excellent, and the staff made everyone feel special. It certainly was a great way to end the very challenging year that 2020 was. A huge shout out to all the crew as well. As always, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe below. Feel free to ask any questions or leave a comment.